Community is the compass, built not of sameness, but of voices varied and vibrant, stitched together in a quilt of care and resistance. Let difference be our strength, not our division.
All right, good evening and welcome to Politrics. My name is Kendall Stevenson. I'm here with my co-host, a brother named Ronald Yates. As always, we try to start off with thinking and talking about things that we need to be grateful for. Now we have the common things like the love of a family or good health. Good health is always good to be grateful for. The support of friends, those are very good things to be grateful for. But just remember, there are people out there who don't have a warm bed to sleep in at night. So if you have a warm bed to sleep in, then that's something else to be grateful for. Clean water, having a roof over your head, a safe place to shelter, even having a hot shower. So just be grateful for the simple things that you have around you, because those are the things that truly are going to make the difference. Okay, well, let me let my brother in. Uh, Ashe, what's happening, brother? How you?
What's up, brother? I'm well, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, you look well. You look well. I'm okay. How was your Thanksgiving?
Well, it was good to see family. I went down to Maryland. I'm not really a Thanksgiving celebrator, but it is nice to get together with family.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't really celebrate the Thanksgiving in what we would call the traditional manner. It's the truth about Thanksgiving is coming out, and a lot of people are seeing that that's the truth. So we've taken Thanksgiving, and what do they call it now? Indigenous Day. So
hmm
still it's a day that we can get together with family and just be grateful, look to the left, look to the right that these people are around us. Because as we always say, they're here today, they may not be here tomorrow. So give the flowers when they're around and be grateful that they're there. But I think you had a pretty good Thanksgiving. I had a pretty good Thanksgiving, man.
hmm
Got to see some family, got to hang out with some friends. I got to hang out with some cool friends too, man. I had a pretty good time. I did a little photo shoot that day. So yeah, it was a pretty good day.
Oh,
But
that's good.
we've been gone for a couple of weeks, right? We really haven't been on the air, at least live. So we do have some things that we need to unpack this baggage. So last night, just to show you that this man is definitely have dementia. There's something wrong with this man. He's just a little too childlike. Last night, this man he posted over 400 posts in 1 hour. Started out with the Midas touch people. He's got an issue with the Midas touch, not the Midas touch like you would think, like the commercial. The Midas touch is like people who got the money, like APAC. They're
Mhm.
considered to be like the Midas touch. So he's got a little issue with them because he doesn't have that money like that. He doesn't have that Midas touch. As we know, pretty much every business he had, he's failed it. So, what do you think about that Midas touch situation and all of those posts?
Well, I think that Donald Trump, he realizes that his troubles are growing. It's not just the Epstein situation now. Now, um, attention is being focused on these extrajudicial killings down in Venezuela.
Mm.
Apparently, a shot was fired, and we're talking about, a missile or a drone strike on a boat, and then uh, there were some survivors,
Hmm.
and then a second shot was fired that killed the survivors. I'm just listening to Pete Hegseth try to justify by saying that the command who gave the order to fire, and then the second,
It was Admiral Bradley.
right,
Yeah, he tried
second,
he tried to throw him under the bus. You see, like Peace said, we know that. What do they say? Ish rolls from the top down. So Pete Hegseth, he's the man. He's in charge of what we call the Department of War now, right? He's the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War. It starts with him, and he's trying to throw this guy under the bus, man. That's horrible.
well, what he's saying is that Pete Hegseth rather, he claims he did not see the second shot, that he exited, I guess, the Situation Room before the second shot was fired. So, yeah, what?
Well, they got these conflicting reports. I guess that's why we go through our politics, because some reports say that he actually he put the order out to make the second shot. So if he put the order out, he was given all the information. There's a guy there, there's other people there, and then he gave the command, boom, to do the second strike.
But is there a paper trail? So, nothing is written, right? There are no written orders. These orders are verbal. And of course, you can deny a verbal order that I ever gave this order. But, going back to Hegseth, essentially what Hegseth is trying to do by distancing himself from this incident, he is just putting asterisks on what these 6 members of Congress said, that you do not have to carry out an illegal order, right? And now you have Pete Hegseth trying to walk back this most recent attack on a Venezuelan speedboat by saying, "Oh, I didn't see it. I walked out of the room. I wasn't aware of it. But we have the back of the admiral who gave the order." Well, of course, yes, as you said, he's going to throw the admiral under the bus. I think the only saving grace is the admiral could not order all of these naval assets into the region. Where did that order come from? And that's going to go to the top. And that's going to be a problem for both Trump and Hegseth. As I said, it's not just the Epstein files now. And, as it relates to these tweets or these posts that Trump makes, what Trump is doing is Trump is talking directly to his base, right? These are pretty much the only people that, in the wee hours of the morning reading Truth Social and listening to what he says or has to say. What he's trying to do is keep them solidly in his corner because he's losing support. The Republicans sided with, some of the Democrats in order to force the Epstein files to be open. That's number one. He's losing constituents like Marjorie Taylor Greene. He called Marjorie Trader Greene. Lauren Boebert. These 2 women were solidly Trump supporters, Team Trump. And now both of them have basically reevaluated their political position and their relationship with Trump.
I don't know much about the other young lady, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, she resigned. Yeah, okay. To me, that was all like a stage, like it's a ploy. It's kind of like a way that she can get out, because she came in with $700,000. That's all she was worth. And hanging out with Trump, she ends up worth, now she's over $25 million is how much she's worth. So that's kind of like a reward to me. And this was like a way that she was able to get out without anybody really coming down on her. Because you see, the Republicans are not really coming down on her. Nobody's really saying, even Donald Trump, as much as he likes to he's not really saying much about her either. The only real people that are talking about her, if anything, it would be the Democrats, and saying how much she resigned and she's this and she's that. Yeah, like I said, she walked away with $25 million. Came in with 700.
I think that her decision to resign from Congress, I think a major factor was the fact that there were threats being made, right? There were many within the MAGA movement that no longer like Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was one of the darlings of the MAGA movement. She clearly is not now. And that's just those are threats to her well-being, threats to her family. But on the political side, Trump threatened to put her in a primary. And of course, all of the support would go to the candidate that opposed her. So I think that's going to create problems for Republicans in the state of Georgia. They're going to have an election to replace or to fill her seat. Does Trump have enough political juice in Georgia to sway the voters in that state. Some of these Georgia Republicans may still have some strong feelings about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Some of them may still support her because, she said that she was leaving. One of the reasons she cited was because, well, the cuts to health care, right? That's going to, affect her district and people that she knows. So I think that there are a lot of people listening like, well, yeah, we support Marjorie. Marjorie's fighting for us. So I think it's going to be tough to hold on to that seat if they have a special election. As for the midterms, I'm not certain we're going to have a midterm election. I think that Trump is looking at.
You think he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act?
I think that's what's coming
because of the 2 National Guards down in D.C.
I think that is something that. Now look, this whole situation in D.C. to me it smells extremely fishy. You have a man who is an Afghan, immigrant from Afghanistan, who fought with the American Army, who worked for the CIA, who was given access to this country. Why now does he all of a sudden go and take his anger and frustration on the same people he worked with and protected in Afghanistan? It doesn't make sense.
Well, it would make a little sense if you think about this. The brothers and sisters that came back from Afghanistan in the different wars, they did come back with PTSD. I mean, just because he was an Afghan, I don't think that really alleviates him from having any mental issues or any PTSD.
He didn't come back from Afghanistan. He is from Afghanistan.
Right.
He fought with the Americans in his own country against these Afghan brothers and sisters, right?
Right.
So he chose a side. He worked for the CIA. So that being the case, you're familiar with the military. You're familiar with U.S. intelligence. And all of a sudden, you go down to D.C., right? Walk up to these 2 National Guardsmen and open fire. I know they said he was frustrated about job prospects and things of that nature. But why take it out on National Guardsmen that cannot affect in any way, your lot in life? They can't shoot. They're not going to improve your condition, right?
I don't think he shot them in a personal way. They just happened to be the target. It's like a police officer. If someone's pissed at the police and they happen to see you in a uniform, you become a target, and they shoot you not because they don't like you. They don't even know you personally. They're killing the uniform, and what the uniform means or represents at the moment.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Basically, what they're saying about this guy is that he was radicalized, and that basically, like all people who take this sort of action, that they're madmen, right? Well, here's a guy that was vetted by both the U.S. military and the CIA, and clearly was not found in any sort of mental defect. Now, all of a sudden, he's crazy. I don't buy it. I know that if you look up, there are 2 programs that were CIA-operated programs, one called MK Ultra, the other called MK Delta. And what they were doing in these 2 CIA projects, they were experimenting with things like LSD. To see if this could be used, what would be the military application of LSD? Could we come up with the perfect soldier, one that will continue to fight, one that won't feel hunger in the traditional way, one that will be impervious to things like heat, cold, a super soldier, right, so to speak. And they used this stuff during the 50s and 60s on they would take prostitutes, and they would have the prostitutes put some drops of LSD into the John's drink. And of course, they would have cameras set up in the room to monitor their reaction. So, we had these movies, 2 of them, one starring Frank Sinatra, the other Denzel Washington, called The Manchurian Candidate, where they showed someone who was basically brainwashed, who had no knowledge of what had happened during his time in service in the Korean conflict. So is it possible that the CIA is still using these programs?
They may be. I mean, at this particular point in time, you don't know who to trust. You can't trust the Democrats, really. You can't trust the Republicans. I mean, you got Jeffries and Schumer, and they take money from APAC the same way that the Republicans take money from the APAC. So it's kind of hard to find out or to figure out who the hell you can or you should trust. How do you know the difference between any of them?
Well, you
Because
know
in
something?
order for things to work, you got to have an opposition, right? You got to have a truth, somebody that's going to talk truth to power. And if both parties are receiving monies from the same place, and how can they, how are they going to be different?
Well, you know what? Um, that's just it. They're really not different, right? They want to present the fact that, they fight each other. But in reality, it's basically like watching WWF.
Mm-hmm.
These guys go into the ring and they appear to beat the crap out of one another, right? But this is all showmanship, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's really no one injured. There's really no one being seriously hurt in these matches, right? This is entertainment. And it's the same thing in Washington, D.C. This is entertainment, right? We think that there is a major difference. But again, as you said, they're getting their money from the same sources.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And, what they're doing is a lot of their legislation, if you go back, 40 years, you see that both parties sort of move to the center, right? Then you see, the Democrats moved away from their base, which was, the working class, the poor, labor unions. The Democrats sort of moved away from them. They started to move toward the center.
Hmm.
Some Democrats shifted toward the right. Republicans, of course, shifted to the far right, which has left behind all, everybody across the political spectrum, right? I mean, we've had nearly a year of Donald Trump as president. And all of these campaign promises that he's made, how many has he fulfilled? Right?
No, I wouldn't even call them campaign promises. I would just call them straight out lies. Okay. I mean, you can start with number one, grocery prices being lower at the store. And we can just have a whole list of things, and each one of them turn out to be exactly that, a lie. Okay. That's
Well,
what it is,
well,
a lie.
well, that's what they became, right? But initially, what they were was campaign promises that he was making to his constituents in order to get elected, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people bought into it, saying, okay, if he gets elected, it'll be good for us, right? And I thought a certain demographic thought that good things would happen for them, and that for people that look like you and I and brown people, that we would get the brunt of Trump's wrath. Well, not so much.
Mhm.
Trump is pretty much equal opportunity in his cutting, in his slashing, in his not creating jobs, in his allowing jobs to go overseas. Trump himself signed off on the sale of a steel company in Pennsylvania, steel producing company, to Japan. One he said that was not a good idea when Biden was president. Well, he signed off on it, right?
Mhm.
So those are more jobs potentially going overseas. So all of these campaign promises, they became what you said, lies.
Mhm.
And what he's doing now is sleight of hand, right? Telling you, well, what you see, you don't really see,
Mhm.
right? Um, you know, everything is down in terms of the grocery store. The prices you see, you don't really see. He says gasoline is $2. You go to the
Don't believe your lying eyes.
right.
That's
Don't believe your lying eyes. You're paying $2.99, but you're not supposed to, right? What you're actually paying is something else.
three
Well,
and better.
people know what they pay for stuff. People know what the price are in the store. They're not crazy, right? So when you walk into the store and you have $100 and you buy meat and you're walking out with half a plastic bag of groceries, right?
Mm.
People understand that. and telling people, no, you're not really seeing what you're seeing, or you're not experiencing what you're experiencing is not going over so well. So the troubles for Trump are mounting right now. And I think that a lot more Republicans, maybe you're going to see over the next couple of months, a lot more Republicans are going to be getting off the bandwagon because they're going to be fighting for their political future. I mean, they're fighting for it right now. I mean, just look at some of these, look at the last election that we've had, right?
Mm.
You know, in terms of the governorships, New York City mayor, you know,
Yeah,
down
I
in
mean, the
Virginia.
Democrats can take a victory lap for what took place, but my question is now, what do you do with it now? You know, now you got these people in office, you got these the pawns in place, the chess pieces, you have them all in place now. Now, what do you do with it? How do you get back the Senate? How do you get back the House? Because that's where it's really going to make any impact.
Well, here's the thing, right? I think that a lot of people have that question. Now what, right? How do we regain control of the Senate, of the House, of the White House? That's not the problem. The problem is that we're putting the same people back into office,
Mm.
and we're putting our hopes and faith into a system that has failed us repeatedly. In order for this country to survive, we've got to abandon our political system, our economic system. We've got to start from scratch. Because what's happening is we keep voting for the same system, a system that impoverishes us, a
Mm-hmm.
system that, doesn't educate our children, a system that is taking away health care, a system that is destroying the environment, a system that denies that there's such thing as climate change.
Mm-hmm.
It is unsustainable, this system. And if we keep voting the same people in, we're going to deal with the same problems. In fact, no, we're not going to do the same problem. We're going to deal with much worse problems. We already have, the polar ice caps melting, which means sea levels are rising. People are going to die, right? We see more and more natural disasters. Look at what's going on in Jamaica,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're not addressing that.
We're addressing it. You know how we're addressing it? This administration, they're deregulating everything. That's what
They're
they're doing.
basically, they're
Yeah,
basically,
they're allowing the polluters to pollute. You know, soon it's a thing going. We got to test our water. We really got to test our water now because of these deregulations now. You know, I mean, luckily for me, I have a well, but people who don't have a well, you get what you're going to get. I'm sorry for you. You know,
right.
but we got to test our water. We got to even the air. What's going to happen with our air? He starts taking away deregulation this and deregulating that. Look what's happening to our planes. I'm sure there was a bunch of deregulations there too. Everybody wants to make this dollar. They don't want to pay what it costs in order to keep us safe as Americans. And what they keep doing is feeding us a whole lot of bullshit and telling us
Well,
that they're keeping us safe, and they're not.
and that's both parties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because both parties claim that they're fighting for us. Well, the only people that are losing this fight is working class Americans. Poor people are losing the fight. It's like you hear people on the right say, oh, we're going to own the liberals, we're going to own the libs, we're going to own the Dems. You're not hurting the Democratic Party. You're not. You're
Nope.
hurting people that are in the same position that you are. These people have a lifetime pension. They want to take away your health care, but they have it for life.
That's
After
right.
just taking one term, you're not hurting them. But they have it ingrained in their head that we're going to own these Democrats. We're going to hurt the blue states. You're going to hurt your family members.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because some of them
All
live
this
in these
division,
states.
all this divisiveness, that's got to go. It
It
can't
works. It
be
works for the
this that.
politicians.
You know, it can't be blue and red. It's got to be blue and red. It can't be. It's got to be. It's got to come down to we are the American people, and American people is gonna have to come first. And I mean the average Joe Blow, because we already know we live in a system here in a country here. They don't give two squats about the elderly. After 65 years old, you think this country wants to take care of you? Nope. They want to take away from you. And then you got the baby situation. They don't want to have abortions, right? They're all against the abortion, but then when the baby is born, well, he may need welfare. He may need social services in order for him to grow. He may need to get an education. All of these things that they want to take away. So you got all these people who have, and you got a system that's given to those that have, but taken away from those who don't have. That's the system that we have.
You know, I'm like a World War II buff, right? So I was watching something today. They were talking. It was the Nuremberg trials, actually, and at this time they put Hermann Goering, who was the number two in not under Adolf Hitler, Rudolf Hess, and so many other of the Nazi hierarchy on trial. One thing the Nazis did not have was an exit plan. When the English, when the British and the Americans began to bomb the Reich, something that Goering said would never happen, when they began to bomb the Reich, when the war in the Eastern Front changed and the Russians were now resupplied, when they had, hundreds of divisions that they could throw at the Germans, and the Russians were closing in on the Eastern Front, there was no escape plan, right? That's why these guys were caught. For the Trump administration, Trump has an exit plan, I'm certain of it, because he knows by this point there's no way to fix this economy. There's no way to pay down our debt, right? The debt is ballooning right now. Even with Trump saying that, well, I went and got Elon Musk to, he's going to eliminate waste and inefficiency. Well, that money that they save, they never tell you where that money went. That money went into the pocket.
That money went, you know where that money went. That went to the pocket,
see,
man.
you and I know. But for the people in this country that still are, staunch supporters of Donald Trump, they're not going to find out that Trump leaves office how much money that Trump and his family stole, and his wealthy friends. They're not going to know how much that he stole until he leaves office. And the books are open and we realize that all of the money is gone.
And then check this out. He'll get away with it. But just like in his last term, all of the people around him ended up in jail or in handcuffs or some kind of trouble. Now, the people that surround him now, Trump may get away with what's going on, really, but not the people that surround him, like the head of the FBI or Bondi, Pam Bondi.
They don't have
all of the things that they're allowing to happen. They're going to get them.
Well, that's my point. They don't have an escape plan. See, Trump has two planes, a 747 to 757 at his disposal. He don't need Air Force One, right? I think that $400 million 747 that he got from Qatar is being outfitted now, right? So he's got an escape plan. But I don't think he's going to escape, because this final war has nothing to do with people going after Trump. This is much bigger than that, right? This is the war that we were told, the war of Armageddon, right? We're on that precipice, right? We're right there. Trump bombing away in Venezuela, killing innocent people. You're only ushering in that time, right? When we will have this global conflict. We're on the wrong side of history. We're on the wrong side. I don't care what religion you follow. If you are religiously astute, then it's clear. Whether you read the Bible, the Quran, no matter what book of wisdom you read, it's clear what is happening now, or it should be. So Trump cannot escape this. There are forces well beyond the control of you and I that are after Trump, right? So I don't think he's going to escape. He can't. And those around him that don't have an escape plan, well, Steve Bannon said, if we don't win the midterms, we are going to jail, myself included, right? Steve Bannon made that announcement publicly because he sees it, right? So for those that don't have an escape plan, yeah, Trump will of course throw them under the bus like he threw, like it's now Marjorie Trader Green and so many others, members of the Republican Party that he has abandoned, called rhinos, Republicans in name only, and has threatened them and cajoled them and forced
Mhm.
them, bullied them. Well, those numbers of Republicans are beginning to drop off, and we're going to see more people leave the ranks.
Mm.
And when that happens, Trump will be looking toward making his move to get out of office.
Mm. Hey,
You
did
know,
you see about Letitia James and Comey? What do you think? You think they're going to bring them back into court?
they said that the Department of Justice is exploring re-indicting James Comey. But if you're going to attempt to re-indict him with the same evidence you had from the first indictment, it's not going to go over very well.
Mm.
I think that what's happening here is clear. There is no basis to indict. I mean, as a police officer, you need probable cause to make an arrest. Well, under
Mhm.
Trump administration, all you got to do is go out and grab people off the street.
Mm.
You don't need probable cause. You don't need a warrant. You don't need a search warrant, one arrest warrant. You just go out and you grab people off the street. And in Trump's world, you don't need evidence to indict someone or to charge them. You fabricate it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I
That's
mean,
always been his thing.
well, yeah. I mean, here's a man that said, I need 11,780 votes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said it, on the tape line that, look, find me these votes so that I could win the state of Georgia,
And he
right?
still walked. He walked on that too.
And that's why I say Trump has the power over the courts in this country, the Supreme Court, state courts, local courts, but there are forces greater than this country that are after Trump. And that he cannot escape. You know what I mean? There was a
I
power
hope they catch
for
up to him.
Trump in
That's what I
office.
can say.
I'm sorry?
I said I hope those forces catch up with his ass.
Oh, there's no escape. There's
Because
no
at the
escape.
moment, he don't have to kill anybody on Fifth Avenue. He can just drop a bomb out in the Caribbean and still get away with it. Murder is murder. Yeah,
Well,
they're trying to say they're going to get him for war crimes. How you going to get him for war crimes if there's no war?
here's
There's
the
no
thing.
war.
Well, you don't really need a war to commit a war crime, right? And, when you're using the military in such a manner as to kill innocent people, that's a war crime. But you're kind of making my point for me when you say that there's nobody to stop Trump. No, nobody in America is even trying, right? And the European allies are looking the other way, right? Pretending like, oh, we don't see what's going on. Well, that's why it's going to take a higher power to bring not just Trump, but this entire country to its knees. It happened in Nazi Germany. It happened with the British Empire. The sun never set on it. Now, what do they got? A few pieces left in the Caribbean, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at the French. French has a huge empire. Africa, what was called French Indochina. They ain't got that no more.
Mm-hmm.
So for all of these colonial powers that carved up the earth, well, now you see in Africa, you see people like Captain Traore.
Yeah.
And you see that spreading throughout other African countries who are now demanding that Europe give them back the antiquities that they stole, the wealth that they stole, the gold, the diamonds, right? Give it back to us. So
the only issue I got with what's going on in Africa, because there's a couple of nuances, like even what's going on, you got the Chinese over there, and the Chinese they're trying to buy up, and they're just buying up property and land and just buying more and more, and they're bringing a lot of Chinese people in and so forth and so on. So are the Chinese now the colonialists? Are they bringing in they're bringing in colonies, and they're going to try to do the same thing that the Europeans did, just from a different angle? I don't know.
I don't think that anyone will in any way approach what the Europeans did on the African continent, right? I don't think that there's anyone that can come close to that level of cruelty, that level of inhumanity, that level of depravity. For the Chinese, I think that the Chinese watched what the Americans and the colonial powers did, and they slowly built their economies based on investment by, external forces like America, like Europe. And when the time was right, they began to beat these people at their own game. That's why they hate the Chinese, because they're beating them at their own game, the game of global exploitation. I don't know if I don't think the Chinese are in any way close to what the Europeans are. I think that China may be looking for partnerships, but not total control. So, for these Europeans and this country, their day is over. I think that a lot of us in this country, black and brown, are still clinging to hopes that America is going to turn around, that Donald Trump is going to turn around, this situation, this country. It's impossible. 36, $37 trillion in debt, people losing their jobs going overseas, right? The economy continues to falter.
Why
right?
people think that jobs are going to come back to America? I don't understand that. This man lied. He says, well, yeah, we're going to bring all these jobs back to America, especially when they talk about manufacturing jobs. That's not going to happen. I mean, even if you brought the companies came back, they're not going to bring the people. They're going to hire us. Look at Amazon. They're already looking to get rid of people and replace them with AI and machinery. So
Right.
if it's happening there, that's going to be a trend all over. So a lot of those jobs, we've seen it happen. We've been watching it happening for years. Look at go through a toll booth. When's the last time you seen a toll booth? How about that? Or how about even in New York? You go downstairs, you had someone always in there that told you the tokens. Now where they at now? So the technology is more or less taking over the jobs that we used to have. So I don't see where they're going to bring all this manufacturing back. I don't see it. I don't see where it's going to cost them too much money to do so.
And interestingly enough, you brought that up about jobs coming back from overseas, right? Well, let's be realistic. Labor costs here are way too high, right? Cut into their profit margin. That's not going to happen. But what's interesting is what Donald Trump said very recently. Trump has been having these massive roundups of black and brown people. Yet at the same time, he's basically saying that American people is too stupid to do these high-tech jobs like in the field of AI, right? And yet, the people, at least amongst Republicans, I think his approval rating is about 80%. Here's a man that said, I'm going to kick people out of this country, right? And I'm going to create jobs by doing so, because the jobs that Americans would do are being taken up by these foreigners. Now you're telling the people that supported you, well, you know what? I'm not going to give you the jobs, the high-paying jobs, because you're too dumb to do them. We're going to have to bring in people to replace you. And
South Africans, okay, because that's his new thing to import is people from South Africa, the white South Africans. He doesn't want to bring in anybody of color.
I think he has to. I think he has to, because in the field of AI, right? Who's leading in that field?
I'd say India.
And that's who he's going to have to bring in, right? In terms of tech, it's India. Canada has been welcoming Indians with open arms because they see the trend. America has been resistant. We're going to round these people up. We're going to send them back to their country. But you know what? Now Trump is realizing, since he is into AI now, his family's invested in AI, his family's invested into things like Bitcoin. Now I'm going to bring these people in. So while I have the roundups of the poor people who are migrant farmers, I'm going to bring in Indians who know the field of AI, who know how to cut more jobs and create more AI positions so that we can maximize our profits.
Well, let's just hope they're not treated like the Koreans were treated when they came over here with the factory down south, the Honda.
Yeah.
They were teaching people how to be managers or how to actually run the plant, and somebody who was running for candidacy down there decided to call ICE,
Mm-hmm.
and all those Korean people, they wrapped them up, snatched them up, put handcuffs, and send them off back to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hope that when the Indians, if you want to say, when they come over and they start with the AI and they have things to contribute to the country, that we don't decide to pick up the phone and call ICE and have them deported.
Well, you know what? When that happened down in Georgia, right? It's one of the first times Trump came close to saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, guys." He said, "Look, you can still come back and still open the plant." And they said no. Trump realized I needed that plant because I got to hold on to Georgia in the midterm elections. So you got to figure that's 9,000 jobs that will not go to that
9,000 jobs that's
9,000.
you're not going to get.
Now
9,000.
you lost your support in Georgia in the personage of Marjorie Taylor Greene, right?
Mm.
You're opening the door for the Democrats down in Georgia, right? So Trump was one of the first times he came close to saying, "Oh, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe we shouldn't have had this crackdown, at least not there," right? Because that would help me. I could have said, I brought those jobs to Georgia. And now those jobs are going elsewhere, just like so many other jobs are going elsewhere. Because right now, if you are a foreign investor, right, is America a good investment? America doesn't have infrastructure. Like in Europe, they have high-speed rail service, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that here. We have the Acela train, but for the most part, it doesn't do above 90 miles an hour. Right?
It's a question. So what backs our U.S. dollar? What makes it so valuable? What makes our U.S. dollar so valuable?
It's not valuable.
It's not valuable.
That's another problem for foreign investors, right? The dollar's not worth anything. So to come into this country now, right, and to say you want to open businesses, well, what are you going to pay American workers? What about American labor laws? What about things like minimum wage? What about providing things like healthcare, a pension, a 401k? Those are things that other countries may not have to, involve themselves with. In Europe, you have socialized medicine. So that's something you don't have to worry about paying medical benefits. We don't have it in this country.
Because we don't consider health to be a right in this country.
It's a
in
privilege.
this country, healthcare is a business.
Mm-hmm.
It's like any other business. That's what healthcare is in this country. And it's a damn shame because we complain about what goes on in the socialist countries, as they want to call it, but we still contribute money to them. Like, I don't know, Israel, how much money do we give them? And they have socialized medicine. They have free education. All the how about all the European countries? You go, they got the same, man. A lot of them got the same. Germany the same. Look, Germany is
these are our closest allies, right? And for them, that makes businesses. It's more conducive to businesses. We don't have to pay healthcare costs. Healthcare costs rise yearly, right? That's why most American companies are abandoning healthcare or you're curtailing it, right? Okay, yeah, if you have a common cold, you can go to the doctor. But if you have, a pre-existing condition, well, I don't know. If you have something like cancer or some chronic illness, like say diabetes, well, I don't know, we can insure you because you're going to cost us, right?
Speaking about healthcare and stuff like that, I've been getting my bills back lately. Yeah, man, it's gone up. The cost for me to go for just to walk in the door, man, that's gone up. Everything is just going up, especially in the medical field, man.
Right.
I got to get an operation. I got to get it done. I'm trying to get it done before 2026. So 2026, they'll probably be out the roof what they're going to charge me. Even with the situation with the cancer, you wouldn't believe how much money I had to come out of pocket with.
I
And
would.
I have medical insurance.
Right. Actually I would, because we discussed this. My wife is a survivor.
Right.
So I would, right? I've seen some of the bills, but that's another thing, right? That is hurting the Trump administration. The fact that you're telling people, well, you know what? Don't pay attention to what's going to happen in 2026, 2027 with your healthcare costs. Don't pay attention to that. Look over here, this war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Look over here, what's going on in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't pay attention to those real, um, you know,
Pay attention to my
dedicated
left hand.
issues.
Don't worry about what I'm doing with my right
Right,
hand. Just
right.
want you
Don't
to
pay attention to
my
that.
left hand. Okay?
Just listen to what I tell you. Don't pay attention to what you see. Don't
No.
pay attention to, the fact that you can't save $1. Don't pay attention to the fact that yes, your healthcare costs are going to go up. You may be able to see a doctor. And not only that, a lot of these hospitals in rural areas, they're closing up.
Hmm.
That's
This is what I can tell you here, man. If this is what he says, if this is the greatest economy that we've ever had, then we're doing the greatest that we've ever done. Right? I don't know what's bad gonna look like. If this is the greatest that we're gonna look like, then what's bad gonna look like? We talking about dust bowls again? Back from the 19th. What are we talking about here?
right. So he's got to find a message that's going to resonate with people and telling them that, oh, yeah, things are great here and people are suffering. I mean, I was looking at 60 Minutes a couple of weeks back. It was showing, these soybean farmers, right? You know, the money that should have been earmarked to help them out went to Argentina to build their soybean industry, build their beef cattle industry, right? You said America first. You're going to invest in America. When the money's going overseas, it's going to Israel, it's going to Argentina, it's going to other places, but it's not here. In fact, I saw something on social media. They just had the Marine Corps, the Marine Corps ball or something that was held in Israel.
It's held
The
where?
U.S. Marine Corps is having their ball in Israel.
In Israel. Why?
In Israel.
Why?
Exactly. Good question. Why? Right? Why did Eric Adams fly to Israel to say to the people of Israel, I guess of Tel Aviv, that I served you as your mayor? In what capacity does the mayor of New York City serve the people of Jerusalem or Tel Aviv? How? This shows you
it's one quick
that the
after another,
power
man.
lies.
Remember, we talked about how it rolls from the top, man. So straight from the top, we got to. He's a criminal. I don't care what anybody says. He's a criminal. He's a pedophile. He goes into the girls' locker room or whatever while they're changing for the pageant, and he brags about that. That's what we have at the top. And all the other guys, Pete Hefsek, what is he? Alcoholic, drunk? What is he? And he's running our military. Then you got Pam Bondi. I mean, I'm sure if you look her record up, she's probably a pedophile or sex offender somewhere down the line. So all of these people that's running our government right now, they're all criminals, man, from one place to another. So I can understand how Adam can go over there and say and do the things he would. First of all, Trump and Netanyahu, whatever his name is, right? They're buddies. Aren't they buddies? War crimes together. Right?
Well,
War criminals together. That's what they are.
I will say this, right? Because you want to stay on the air, right? As it relates to Trump, he is suspected of being a pedophile, right? Possibly that may come out in the Epstein files. We don't have proof of that yet, right? Because of course, somebody like Donald Trump and his FCC, whatever's left of it, will scour podcasts and look for things like this, right? When accusation was made, and that'll be reason to shut down the podcast.
Well,
But
we
not
do
just
know that
ours.
he's already been convicted of sex crimes. That's already right here in New York.
Well, he wasn't convicted of a sex crime, right? I think what happened was that was in a civil suit, that
Mm-hmm.
it was basically more likely than not that he committed the crime, but he was not actually charged with rape, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as it relates to Trump, I guess as it relates to anybody, if we're going to make an accusation, we have to prove that accusation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And with him, he's somebody that's going after Comey because I don't like what you said. He's going after Letitia James because I don't like the fact that you prosecuted me.
Mm-hmm.
He went after Fonnie Willis down in Georgia because I don't like the fact that you prosecuted me. He's going after Adam Schiff because I don't like what you have to say about me.
Mm.
So
It's a good thing
with
we got
that,
freedom of speech here. I tell you, it's a good thing. That's in the Constitution, freedom of speech. What does that mean?
it,
Does that mean
it,
only they have
it,
freedom of speech? Does that mean he's the only one that got the right to insult somebody or say nasty things about people? Like Miss
it, it,
Piggy. Is that what they're saying? That he's the only
un-
one that has freedom of speech? We don't.
unfortunately, it does mean that
Hmm.
because right now nobody goes back at Trump, right? They allow him to say whatever he chooses to say, no matter how hurtful he's allowed to say it, right? Um, and in terms of freedom of speech, let's be realistic. Have we ever had freedom of speech?
Well, not us, pretty much. I
Right.
mean,
Has
we've always
anybody
been.
had it?
I mean, but with us, man, we're criminals by default. That's so. Regardless, if we start a Black Lives movement, well, then they consider that to be a gang. But what do they consider the Ku Klux Klan? They're not terrorist
Well,
organizations. No.
they actually registered as a Christian organization.
Yeah,
But you have
the
to
Christian
understand
United.
something, right? You have to understand something. In this country, they've always curtailed speech. Anybody that was anti-government, just look at what the FBI did under J. Edgar Hoover, right?
Mm.
They went out mass incarceration. They went out, COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, right? They were knowingly violating laws, but they didn't care, right? Anybody, I mean, look, you go back to the 1950s, Joe McCarthy and the Red Scare, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you read a pamphlet from the Communist Party, well, you were drummed out of Hollywood.
And it's funny,
Mhm.
you could have been a Nazi back then, it would have been okay. Especially like back
Well,
in the 1940s and when you could have been a part of a Nazi organization because if you remember
well,
back during that time, they had a big Nazi movement here.
well, they had a big Nazi meeting at Madison Square Garden, right?
Yeah, Trump's daddy.
So speech is something that always has been curtailed in this country. If you did not, just look at what happened to Colin Kaepernick, right?
Oh, please,
Right.
man. Wow.
And here's somebody. All he did was take a knee. He didn't say anything negative about the government. He did speak out against police brutality, but he's supposed to have the right? Well, look
Yeah.
at what it's done. And this was just his right to speak. And you had a president, the current man in the White House, who said, "Wouldn't you just like to have that son of a bitch fired?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Get him off the
Yeah.
field
You
because
mean
he
the same
spoke
guy
out.
that's in office now?
Right. Because he spoke out. That's the freedom of speech that we have in this country.
Yeah, but you can't
Doesn't really
speak out.
exist
You
anymore.
can't speak out. I can't speak out. If
Right.
we speak out, then we've done something wrong. But anyway, on that note, the clock is still ticking. So on that note, we're gonna pretty much end this. Hopefully we can come back and do this again next week because I
Absolutely.
really enjoyed it.
Weather will be better.
I miss your information. You're a person that's filled with knowledge and information. Sometimes I don't always get it right, but I'm glad that you're around to make sure it is get the information gets put out there and gets put out there correctly. So
Thank
I
you,
thank
brother.
you for that,
Appreciate
my
that.
brother. Yeah, I appreciate that as well. So because a lot of times I don't get an opportunity to get to do all of the research that I need to do in order to do what we need to do here. But you got my back, so, so I don't worry about that too much, and I appreciate that for that. So anybody that's been tuning in, thank you guys for tuning in. We truly appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Nothing at all. Hit the like button. That too is free. And stay tuned. We got other shows coming up. I mean, tomorrow we have a really good show coming up for you. Tomorrow we're going to get an opportunity to talk to some folks down there in DC, see what they feel about having that 500 troops that Trump wants to put down there, and extend the National Guard stay there. Also, remember on Mondays we have Mental Health Mondays. We got hanging out with Anna Lopez, and we also got tomorrow. You'll get an opportunity to check out Miss Ruiz. Okay, and she's into finance. She's a financial coach. Okay, and she's got a lot to say. She'll be here with a guest. So please stay tuned to the network. Thank you very much, my brother Ashe.
What's
Time to
up,
be
brother?
out. Peace.
Peace.
Oh, remember, always be yourself, because everybody else is taken.